following podcast contains spoilers and adult language and some free advice. Don't smell Henry VIII or the rehydrated people. Just awful.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. Evil is coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And this week we're going to be covering episode 3 of the series Three Body Problem. But try saying Three Body Problem. Oh my God, I fell right over that. The uplifting title of this episode is Destroyer of Worlds. It was like a heartwarming tale, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I suppose if by heartwarming you mean like pulling your heart out and like letting it like warm in the sun. Yes, very heartwarming.
Yeah, pulling it out and holding it in your hands to keep your hands warm while you freeze to death, right?
That's right.
That's what they mean by heartwarming. Okay.
Right. While Mola Ram attempts to rule the world, yes.
Yeah. Mola Ram, Sigaram. There you go. Jokes for the old people. That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for, people.
Jokes. Yeah, Gen X and older, you're welcome.
If you can't reference Temple of Doom, then I don't want to be here, okay?
Exactly. So let's chat our quick thoughts on the episode. I went first last week, so you get to go first this week. So, age before beauty and all of that. So, Steve.
I don't know. It seems to me you're catching up.
I know, but I'll never catch up. You get to go first. So what are your thoughts on episode 3 of Three Body Problem?
Yeah. This episode, I think I liked it, but I liked all these episodes. So I'm fairly confident that there's not a single episode of this series that I'm like, well, that was terrible. So, and was it my favorite one of the ones we've seen so far? No, I don't think so. But I think this one has a lot of great stuff in it. There's a lot of explanation. A lot of, this is what is going on, and we talked initially about episode 1 about all these kind of different threads that are all seemingly very, very far apart. And we've seen last week, even in episode 1, but definitely last week, they start getting a little bit closer. And then this episode, definitely a lot more closer and a lot more things kind of fall in as to what exactly is going on here and what is this weird computer game and how does it relate to the other story threads that we've been introduced to. And it's got a great ending, no doubt. Shocking, I suppose you could say, but still very, very cool. And I thought there was a lot of nice little touches in it that we can get to at various moments. But yeah, if you were a big fan of Jack Rooney, I'm sorry, but this is kind of it. I hope you enjoyed it. So the smartass comments, the Nick Frostian performance is no more, but it was fun while it lasted. And I'm sure he on that Game of Thorns show that you talk about all the time, I'm sure his character had a much better arc than this one. And
certainly a longer one, that's for sure.
Okay, well, again, I'm just gonna take your word for it. So so I thought overall, like I said, I liked it. I don't think it is the best one that we've seen so far, and I certainly don't think it's the best one of the whole series. But again, I have a little bit of a cheat going on in the fact that I kind of know what's coming up, and so yeah. But anyway, I did. I overall, I enjoyed it, and it made me laugh at points, and it made me go, "What the hell?" at points, and so yeah. What about you? What'd you think?
I'm similar, and again, to remind folks, Steve has seen the full series and I have not. So he's coming from a place of rewatch, and I'm coming from a place of I'm going week to week. So I don't want to spoil myself. So it's good to know that you don't think that there's a single episode that you disliked, which is great. I felt very similarly about this episode. Very explainy. Some parts were science-y, and that was okay. I just feel like in the first 2 episodes we had some science-y moments, but there was more figuring out you had to do. You know what I mean? So your brain was a little more engaged. I know who these people are, and I know the situation they're in. Now we don't know the answer to what these people are, who they are, why is this happening. So the why hasn't been answered, but I know these people, all of their relationships with each other, etc. So I don't have to engage when that stuff's, I'm like, okay, I don't care. Not I don't care, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of the sciencey stuff without the addition of, well, hang on, what's their relationship again? How are these guys connected? Do they connect to something else? I didn't have to pay attention for that because I already knew that. So it was mostly the sciencey stuff. But you are correct. There were some jokey moments. You can always count on Jack. Oh, R.I.P. Jack. To have some, fun moments. And there was that I totally forgot. There's that funny moment with Will too. There's a couple of funny things. But like you're saying, those threads are starting to come together a little more. There's a little more information, especially towards the end. There's some real moments at the end. And then of course, R.I.P. Jack, very exciting and thrilling, I would say. So yeah, I would say not my favorite of the ones that I have watched so far. But I'm hopeful and confident that they will, I don't want to say rebound because then it sounds like it was a bad episode, but I'm hopeful that we'll get even more in the next episode if it sort of builds, you know what I mean? Because you and I talk too about series, they have their ebb and flow, etc. And so I'm just hopeful the next week, starts to, climb that mountain again, go a little bit more to the top, which based on how it ended, I kind of think it will probably. So
I know nothing.
So that's it.
Overalls.
Overalls. So I would say agree. It's not my favorite of them so far, but again, when something is high quality to begin with anyway, then even an episode that wasn't the best out of all of them is still 10 times better than a lot of stuff you're going to find on regular TV anyway. So a good episode, not great, but it was good. Definitely. So let's get into talking about the episode itself, some of our details. Before we do that, let's remind ourselves what the plot of episode 3 was. So Steve, why don't you go ahead and read the very descriptive episode description that we got.
Super descriptive is what I would say.
Totally.
Totes. Soups, totes.
Yes.
Totes, soups.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So this again is Three Body Problem, episode 1.3, and the title is Destroyer of Worlds, which clearly some sort of reference to the Oppenheimer Manhattan Project atomic bomb thingy. And the description we have is: obsessed with their virtual reality quest, Jin and Jack race to solve a complex riddle, but advancing to the next level brings harrowing, and I'm going to use air quotes there, consequences. And that is your episode description.
I just realized the problem I have when I read descriptions outside of, say, IMDb, where there's a visual aid for my brain. Right. Because if you look at Jin and Jack, don't you just think they're talking about Lost?
Kind of, yeah. Kind of.
Yeah, sure. I looked at that and I was like, I have to, because there's, if you haven't watched Lost, and if you haven't, then who are you even? There are a couple of main characters, but unfortunately, the name Jin is used for a man. And there is Jack is, I would consider, the lead of the show. So reading Jin and Jack, and you're like, oh yes, not Not Lost Jin and Jack. Three
No,
Body
different
Problem
one.
Jin and Jack.
Right, because if this
Totally
was a description for Lost, it would include in there that Jin and Jack would also not tell either of the other about anything they experienced alone during the entire episode, because that was a
Correct.
Lost constant, right?
Correct. Yeah. Constantly
Yeah.
happen. All right. So yeah, that was not very descriptive, but quasi.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really encompass the whole thing, but it never really does. So let's chat a little bit about our writers and director for this episode. What you got?
Okay, well, our writer for this week is one of the showrunners, and I think someone that you're familiar with, and that's Alexander Woo. And I don't know. He wasn't a Game of Thorns guy, but
he wasn't. No.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
He was a writer on, I think, and we talked about him a little bit in episode 1 because all 3 of the showrunners wrote episode 1 for this series.
Right.
And so,
right.
If you remember, he wrote for True Blood. He wrote for a show called Sleeper Cell, and he wrote for The Terror season 2, which is the Japanese internment camp season.
Right.
So that is his contribution. But what I'm really excited about is the director for this episode. We're talking like, oh my God, high level, incredible dude. And that's this guy named Andrew Stanton. Mm-hmm. And Andrew Stanton, I think a lot of people might be like, who's that? Because, you're not thinking, it doesn't have a lot of recognition. But Andrew Stanton is a guy that he came up through Pixar. And he wrote and directed WALL-E, Finding Nemo, and A Bug's Life. And he is slated right now to direct Toy Story 5, which is set to go into production either this year or next year. He also directed episodes of some shows you might be familiar with. One in particular is called Better Call Saul. As well as another strange little show called Stranger Things. And then for just a nice little Walking Dead universe crossover, he directed the live action film about John Carter, which came out in like 2016, 2017. That was a total bomb. That was a movie nobody saw. And in the John Carter movie, the female lead was played by Lynn Collins, who we all remember was Leah, which was Daryl Dixon's girlfriend in those flashbacky episodes. So, yeah.
Look at that! Look at all that provenance. My goodness.
I know. But anyway, Andrew Stanton, yeah, he's a think about all those Pixar films that he did that are just
true.
Just freaking amazing. So, and I mean, you can go, if you look up his IMDb, I mean, he's done a lot of other stuff too that I didn't mention, but those are kind of the highlights that people would be like, you going, oh yeah, I've heard of that. So yeah. So that is your writer director.
If you think about that, because if he has all that directing experience with animated and computer generated sort of directing, and they were in the world of the video game so much, this episode, that makes sense that, somebody who's got that kind of eye and that kind of vision for those kinds of movies. It's that's interesting. Very interesting. I like it.
Yeah.
How about it?
How about that? All right,
so let's jump right in. And our cold open has our stalwart chain smoking detective Clarence, and he's at a research facility. I forget. It's Germany, Switzerland. CERN. So it's in Switzerland.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
He's in Switzerland. Yeah, it's
the
It's the nuclear research committee that the Europeans set up. I think in like the mid late 40s, like right after the whole atomic bomb thing happened. So yeah, it's been around for a long time.
So he's investigating another scientist who has, I'm using air quotes, died. but which is interesting because I get into that a little bit. But I couldn't help but put down. He's speaking to, an officer of some kind, an investigator, police officer of some kind. And this gentleman says to Clarence, Dr. Schmidt seemed to, they're talking about how there's not a lot of research happening at CERN because all the stuff we got in episode 1 where like the science isn't sciencing, all of these particle accelerator labs and all of that stuff. They're not, the math is everything's wrong. The science is wrong. And so they're not, their research is all sort of dead, as it were. And the investigator says to Clarence, Dr. Schmidt seemed to take it quite hard. And I'm like, you think so?
You think?
Because right after he says that, and you're like, he took it hard. And then you see like the vision of Dr. Schmidt on his knees next to his tub with his face in the water.
Yes.
I'd say that is the textbook definition of he took it hard. I did enjoy in that scene that, here's this guy and, the Swiss, they don't pick a side. They're so, they're so easygoing and friendly.
Neutral.
And they're so neutral. And this poor guy is like, who kills them? Who dies this way? Who kills themselves this way? And it's, to be fair, it's not a gory scene. Absolutely. The scientist himself, he's literally kneeling on the ground next to his tub. He has filled the tub with water and has placed his face in the water. And that is all you see is him floating in the tub. There's no blood. There's no gory bits. He hasn't like gouged his eyes out like some of the other things we've seen. You know what I mean? It's considering what we've seen so far, it's kind of tame. And this guy is just very like clutch his pearls. What would make someone kill themselves this way? He's so concerned. And Clarence, who is so just like laconic and just like, let me tell you about people that would kill themselves this way. Tells this whole story about Oppenheimer's wife and whatever. But the best part of that whole thing is that when he was like, she did this and whatever, and then kneel and into the water, and he's like, a lot of people think she was murdered. And then he just walks away, and he doesn't say, because it looks very suicide, right? But we don't know. Did someone come and kill him? Because we saw Vera jump, but we haven't seen any of the other scientists kill themselves.
True.
So have they been compelled to kill themselves like Vera seemed like it was? Or did someone, was someone holding Dr. Schmidt's head down in the water is what I think I'm kind of getting to.
I got that part. Yes, I got that.
Yeah. But I don't know yet. I don't know. Was Clarence just being himself, which is dark and mysterious, or was he saying something that might have a little truth to it because we don't know the answers to these people? It appears like they killed themselves, but there's so much mystery surrounding them. Could they have been, staged murders? I don't think we know the answer to that.
You don't know the answer to that, no.
Well, you do, but you're not going to tell me. And
overalls. Just little side correction. It was actually Oppenheimer's mistress that. Did
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And if anyone saw the Oppenheimer movie,
which I haven't yet.
I see. So you did not watch. You just watched the Barb of Barbenheimer. I get it.
No, I haven't seen that movie either.
Oh my God! What do you live in a cave, woman?
I know.
Anyway, if you watch the movie Oppenheimer, his mistress is played by Florence Pugh, and and she's got all kinds of issues. Like I'd say a full subscription, and is very like needy, and when Oppenheimer ends up ultimately sticking with his wife, that like makes her very unstable, and she goes and does herself in. But it's certainly in the Oppenheimer movie, they do not go down the rabbit hole of maybe she was murdered. I think that was more of Clarence just being Clarence and just just being like, hey, which just throw it out there,
which is totally expected and makes sense.
Yeah. And what I love in that is that after they find the body, the Swiss investigator or policeman or whatever he is like, here, you have to see this, and they go into the dead guy's like bedroom, and he's got all these papers all over the place, right? And it looks like he was sleeping on the floor and stuff.
Right.
And the inspector's like, check out what's in the cabinet. And they open up the cabinet, and in there is one of the headsets. And
I love his reaction to it.
Oh yeah, and he takes it out, and he's like holding it lovingly, and I wrote the line out. He goes, "Oh, hello, darling. I've heard so much about you." So
it's so anyway. Great because it comes from you got to think like the double nature of those two scenes. First, it goes from being really dark and mysterious with this investigator, and then 2 seconds later, it's like, "Oh, hello, gorgeous."
Oh yeah, yeah. He's just like, I have been waiting for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
oh my God,
stuff.
Yes. I love it. And as soon as he takes it out, it's like, boom. Let's go to the opener.
Opening credits. Yep.
Opening credits. Let's go. Love it. So, obviously, this scientist dying, killing themselves, as we are led to believe so far. I'm using killing themselves in air quotes, people, because we just don't know. Mm-hmm. So this scientist, obviously well known. So the next scene we get is all of, our young scientists in England talking about the death of Dr. Schmidt, et cetera. And they're sort of talking through some things. They're there and they're at Jack's house. And it's hilarious because Jack is, obviously the comic relief of this whole series, right? Well, at least the first 3 episodes. And Aww. I know. But he's very like,
he wants his part back.
He's very like, he's like the guy that bought all the toys and invites someone over, and he just wants to show you the toys. Like he wants to, hey, you guys want to see? You want to whatever. But it's like everybody's just sort of sitting there and they're all depressed, clearly, because they're taking it in. It's another scientist has killed themselves, and they're wrestling with a lot, and all Jack can concentrate on is, here you go. I got here's a vodka cranberry. I moved 500,000 of those last month. You know what I mean? He's very boastful, and he's trying to prove himself and whatever. And can I get you guys anything else? I've got everything else, whatever. And they're come out
to the garage and take a look at the whole inventory.
Yeah, I've got the whole thing. Yeah. And then when I love the moment when Augie's like, there's a bathroom somewhere. It's like, well, you have your choice. I've got a Japanese one, totally touchless. And she's basically, I love the comedy of the moment where Augie takes a second to take that in and goes, fine. Like whatever. She's like, nobody cares. But like Jack is trying to like, quasi like show off and also like, prove to himself, look, I'm awesome. And, you guys should be jealous of me. Like, there's so much going on with Jack. He's such a child in this scene.
Wow. And then when Augie finishes the bathroom and she goes into his bedroom and he's got like all of the action figures.
Oh my God, yeah.
The Legos and like the Darth Vader helmet. I mean, and she just is literally like, oh my God, just laughing. So yeah, just be like, you are again genius, but like still like a 14-year-old.
Oh my God, I like that. It's still a 14-year-old.
Yes.
But what's great too is like Augie had that moment where she saw in the bedroom like all of his stuff, all of his like sort of nerdy toys and things, and I looked at it and I was like, it literally was a setup of pretty much every nerd, if they all of a sudden became a millionaire,
exactly,
would have some version of that.
My
not
house
everything
looks like that now.
But I feel you just don't have the space to display it.
I know. And
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we wrestle with it every time we go to a con. We're like, oh, this is great, but do I have room for it?
Where do I put it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm running out of wall space. So, like in Jack's case, he's not running out of wall space. He's got plenty of space to put all this stuff. So, like, I clocked at least 3 or 4 things that I was like, oh yeah, I'd buy that. I'd buy that. Like the $700 like Millennium Falcon Lego set. Of course, I would buy that. You know what I mean?
We should point out too, like in the main room where they're all sitting around, he has like on risers this like drum kit.
Oh my god!
That it's just like he's clearly like, I'm just gonna put a drum set there. So if I want to get on and beat on the drums for a while, I can.
God. Just amazing. It sucks because it's like I said, like some of it is just absurd, immature bullshit, like the drums, like I've got a Japanese toilet, like that stuff, like the boastful teenage immature bullshit. But the shelves in the bedroom, I was like, I feel very seen right now because I would totally have the same thing.
Right.
Like the really nice lighting behind some of it, the Darth Vader mask. I would totally have that set up. So I feel bad because Jack's kind of a fucker, but he also is like, I also see a little bit of myself in him, and that's difficult, and I have to deal with that. So anyway.
So when Augie is in his bedroom, that's when she finds his headset. Yeah. And so she puts it on. And she shows up in Tudor England and gets her head cut off.
Yeah, she was also, you were not invited / and away she goes. But she's in a much more, like, when that happened to Jack, I feel like he approached it from a very, like, sort of fun and ready to have fun attitude. Augie is in a fragile state emotionally. Yes. So the fact that she put on a headset, was told she wasn't invited, and her throat was slashed to the point where, because Jack said you could like feel it, you could taste the blood, like it's that much of a sensory experience. And Augie could not handle that. It was the wrong person. I think if anyone else had put it on, it'd be a different reaction. But Augie is in a really rough state. Yep. So she immediately comes downstairs and they have the whole, what is this and whatever. And they get into this whole discussion. And I love it because, again, it's another thing that in another series, they would have been secretive about a lot of it. But here's this conversation, episode 3, and it's right out in the open. This is happening and that's happening. And, Saul is taking a look at it. It's hilarious. She's like, don't put that on. He's like, I'm not going to put it on. Yeah. Don't you worry. But it's really interesting, the conversation, and there's so many funny bits that happen there. Like there's they're describing it. Well, first of all, she's like, I was just in medieval times. And Jack's like, well, to England, really. He's like correcting her. But they're describing the world, and they're like, and the best was like, they're talking about this and the other thing. And I can't remember which one of them says it, but they're like, I never thought I'd get bored of nudity.
Yeah, it's Jack.
Because they're playing that level over and over again. So obviously they see the rehydrated people over and over again.
Yeah.
But the ultimate, they're going back and forth, and there's some funny moments, and then it starts to get dark and accusatory. And then Augie's final thing is that she lays down the law, and she's like, please do not play this game. You have to stop playing this game. And she does the promise me you'll stop thing. And they're like, okay.
Chin's like, okay. And I like your comment.
It's literally the very next moment. It's like, okay. And then it cuts to, she's literally playing the game.
She goes and gets Jack, and they keep, and everything. But, and part of the reason why, Augie is so upset is that, Jack, it kind of explains to her that, until you're invited, if you try and put the headset on, the sword girl shows up every time. And so then he, first of all, he answers a question that you had kind of had last week, in that the package with the headset was like in his house. Remember? And I'm like, think about that. Like somehow they bypass all the security, and you're like, well, maybe he had like an assistant who brought it in, and a very rational, logical idea, particularly for a childlike dude like that. You'd think he would have more adult
someone taking
people
care
around
of him.
to take care of him. Yeah. But he says, like, what does he say? He's got state-of-the-art security and cameras everywhere, and he scrubbed every second of the footage, and there's never any scene of anybody bringing it in, but yet somehow it's in there. Right. Which I thought was kind of cool. But then Augie asked, well, how did, Jin start playing? And she's like, oh, this was Vera's, and Vera's mom gave it to me. And that's it for Augie. She's like, you're playing the game that Vera was playing right before she killed herself. Like, is this a good idea? And when you think about it, you're like, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. Maybe there's a connection there. But so Augie is very, very upset, as you said, not in a good state of mind, and not at all like, oh, this is fun. She's very freaking out, obviously. And I think too, they ask her if the countdown had ever come back in that scene, and she's like, no, it's gone, and she's like, along with my career, and so she's not doing well at all. But once they start talking about the game, Jack and Jin just are going on and on about how they played it, and it's so great, and it's like you can taste everything and smell everything, and that's where Jack's like, just don't smell Henry VIII, and then Jin's like, or the hydrated people, and so they're kind of throwing out some funny lines in there. But as soon as she said, promise me you'll never play this game, or you'll stop playing this game, and they're like, okay, we promise. And then it cuts to Jin, and she's like, we got to keep playing, and so she and Jack go online together, and she's in her house, and she like pulls out, like, she's literally got like a murder board of all of her gameplays that she, like a scientist, is tracking it. And he's like, oh my God, how long have you been playing the game? She's like, a long time, and so then they decide to start level 2. And I thought this was a little interesting in that they both put the headset on, and they're like both in the game together.
Yeah.
For level 2. And I'm like, really? Level 2? And Jack's like, oh yeah, 2-player mode. And then I'm just like, well, how did that work? How, what happens if you don't have a buddy with you like they do? What if you're just playing the game by your, it seemed very strange, and very like lots of unanswered question, and more like it's just a cool TV show thing. But they're both in the English one. They're not in the like Far Eastern one. And and the little annoying girl is there, of course, and so then they have to go see the Pope, because the Pope is the one that's going to decide what solution is this world going to follow to get into not an age of chaos, an age of stability, or an era of stability.
Speaking of which, so there's a few things in that scene that I really liked. I liked the explanation of the, what the problem most likely is. So, they've come to an agreement that they think that this is, as evidenced by they talk about the same thing in the next level, the next era that they're in, or whatever. But I liked that. And then as soon as they say that to the Pope, he's like, burn them. and so I was curious. They were told in level 1 that if they pass level 1, they go to level 2, that they have to use science in level 2. So here they are, they're in this level, and they have to apply science to it. So I'm curious about why science in a world that is, where they have to have what they're saying approved by the Pope, who obviously they're not going to want you to. As soon as she said 3 sons, he's like, you could see the words heretic written over his face. So I'm just curious about like the way that these sort of, they're kind of like loosely, they're kind of like challenges. But the way these levels are set up, it's almost like they have to learn a personal or emotional lesson, because you're never going to be able to solve it, because you're either going to not solve it, or if you do solve it, the solve is scientific and the person who's hearing it is someone who doesn't believe in science. Do you see what I mean? Like, it's almost like oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to do this. I'm going to out nerd the nerdiness of this episode, but it's like a Kobayashi Maru, it's an unwinnable situation that they're in.
What?
They can't.
Did you just drop a Star Trek 2 reference?
I did. But do you see what I mean? Like, did they purposefully set up an unwinnable, because like that's part of, and obviously we're jumping ahead, but like, is that part of the test, that you were so determined to make this work, even in a situation where science would not be accepted, you used a scientific answer anyway because it's the right one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't know. There's a lot of layers there, but that really hit me while I was doing my notes. I was like, why is a place that's definitely, like, she made a point of saying the next level will be determined by science.
She did.
But why would you have the person who's making the decision be someone who rejects science? So that's the thing that I think is the conundrum.
My take on it is that it's not a game. Okay, that's the first thing.
It's a recruitment thing. We know that now.
There's not a way to win or lose. The whole idea of this experience is, there's a scene later on where Clarence is talking to Wade, and Wade is like, they're trying to recruit our best and brightest. And clearly everybody that's playing are all scientists. And I would point out that when they get into where the Pope is, there are like two other like players standing there that have like their answer, that they're like, you were going to pick our solution, remember, Pope? And the Pope's
and
like,
hold on. I love how they picked the name. It's Aristotle and Socrates.
Yeah, and all these scientists, they all pick like scientist names, right? Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, because in the next one with the con, it's Professor Turing and Galileo, maybe, I think is
like I love it. I love it.
And
choose your name.
Yeah, choose a better name. Yeah, right. I'm sure there is one. Yeah, and it's so great because Galileo's like, I use math called calculus, and he's giving them both the double bird when he's telling them that. Oh, it's so great. It's played by an actor named Mark Gatiss, who Mark Gatiss, he played Sherlock Holmes' brother on the Sherlock TV series. And,
cool.
And he's written a lot of stuff. He's a well-known British actor, in the last 10-15 years. But the whole point of the game, and I'm going to use air quotes there, is to introduce to these human scientists what the predicament is of the Senti. I think that's what the humans are calling the aliens, right?
Right.
And that their homeworld is in this 3-star system. It's very unstable, and basically they're saying, look, we've tried to figure out how to survive here, and the science fails us because you can't accurately predict the orbits of these 3 stars and all the sciencey stuff of problems of why it doesn't work. And what does the sword girl say at the end? She said, when a place is going to kill you, what do? And what does Jin say? She goes, flee. And and then they say, yeah, and so you know what, then we accepted your invitation and we built this Starfleet and we are on our way. And that's the whole point of the game. So you're right, Jin comes in and she moves the those leftover candelabras from the Wrapped Around Your Finger video by the police, right? And she sets those up, and then she has the apple that she took from outside, and she's like, this is the planet, and she's like walking around like they're in orbits and stuff, and she's pointing out and demonstrating and using really clear examples of this is what's going on, and this is, there could be a way to fix it. And the Pope's like, and then he goes, I've heard enough. Burner, and they're like, what? And so and you're right. It's like, why would this? It's like this guy is the guy you have to go pitch your sciencey idea to save the world, who clearly is not he's the defender of the faith, right? He's not going to be like, yeah, science is cool,
No kidding.
No. So I think it's hilarious too when everything starts burning and then the little girl comes in on the horse on fire. God, that girl is so annoying. I so side with Jack when he's like, oh, she's so annoying with the save me. And I'm like, I know. I would hate that if that was in a real game I was playing. I'm like, oh, shut up. So,
yeah, and I mean, she goes so far as to not even just be save me, but like, yes, I'm aware of all the times.
Oh yeah,
all the times I died, and you're like, oh my god, emotional blackmail.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because Jin comes up and meets her out there. She's outside of the church or wherever the Pope is, and she's like, oh hey, I'm sorry that you died last time, and the time before. And the time before and like all the other times. And then the kid just goes, I remember them all. And that like Jin like stops in her tracks. Like, what? Because again, it's like an NPC. They don't have any memory. What are you talking about? And then she turns back and then the little kid's like, I remember them all. Every time I died. And it's just like, ow, that hurt.
That is definitely some pain. And it's like, it's emotional pain. So again, like I was saying, like, they're trying to make these judgments and use like, in the first level, I would say it was, folklore. They were using like folklore.
Mysticism.
Mysticism. Thank you. Better word for it. But she was brought up against like, emotional blackmail, and now the emotional blackmail is kind of still there. It's like it's like an added feature to the game.
Yes. Yeah. Undocumented
no matter what
feature.
you do, that kid's always going to be there to mess with your brain.
Yeah. Oh my god, that kid is so annoying. And that's not the actor's fault, but yeah, that character is so annoying.
And you know why she's there, because we hear the story later on about how Jin was abandoned and she never saw her parents again and whatever. So clearly this is a manifestation of that. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain amount of that appeals, and that's why it appeals directly to Jin. That's why it feels like she has more manic energy about being invested in the game. You know what I mean? She's having a harder time disconnecting. Yeah.
All right.
At least I think so. It seems like she does. So
I've heard enough. Burn her.
She done.
She done.
Gotta love that Pope. And I love how it's like you have to assume that these are all other people playing, or they're creations, they're avatars. They're not like he's not acting like, in some ways he acts like a pope, but the fact that she was like he's like your honor is like holiness. A pope he like points to himself. He's like pope, so it was kind of like a modern like way to say it back to him. It was I just think it was interesting. So
see, but that's all just video gamey stuff to me.
Oh yeah.
There that clearly the human player is struggling with like the right word or the right command, and so the game has an interface in it to be like, if you want to move to the right, you push right on the joystick or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like and lots of games do that where they will like step out of character and just kind of give you a piece of like real world advice or help, and that's what I take that for. The same way when all the characters, the NPCs tell them, in various points, you need to pick a better name. You know, it's like that's clearly like a game interface that all those characters say, because everyone's like, well, I'm going to be Diana and I'm going to be Steve. And they're like, this is a game. You need a better name, you know?
Yeah,
so.
You can't be yourself in the game.
Right.
You have to become someone else.
Exactly. But so she takes off the helmet then, and Raj is like there, and it's like, what do you say? It's like 3 a.m. So like clearly they've been playing for hours, right?
Oh God. And he even says like, Jack logged off. So like, I wonder if there's an element of like, did Jack leave the game and Jin was still in it? It's what it felt like to me. Like maybe. He was done. Like, I'm out of here. I mean, we didn't see that scene, so we don't know, but it certainly had that feel. Like she couldn't let go, and she didn't come out of the game until that moment there.
Yeah, and we should point out too that the world gets destroyed, it gets burned up, and yet the sword girl shows up and tells them that they completed level 2 and they're ready for level 3. And what did she say? That you correctly identified that the planet that we're on is in a 3-star solar system, and said, now you're going to have to use that knowledge to move forward when you begin level 3. So, level 1, what did they, you got the idea that, she had like 50 tries trying to save level 1. And here on level 2, they literally play it once and they pass. So that I thought was kind of interesting. But so in the real world, Raj is there, and he points out that she is going to have dinner with his family, and that this is a big step in the boyfriend-girlfriend thing. And again, I thought was one of the funnier bits of the episode, because he's like, you're nervous. She's like, no, I'm not. I'm really excited. And he's just like, okay, it's funny. They're going to love you. You're going to be great. Just be yourself. And then he says, just maybe, tone down the science talk a little. And then it literally cuts to her, and she's like using like one of the rolls to like demonstrate a universe, and is peeling it apart and going, look, and now it has this. And everybody else is looking at her at the table like, oh my God.
It's hilarious. It's so hilarious. She's just like, it's literally exactly what he said not to do. Don't do this. And she's like, okay. And then it's like, all right, well, let me explain the universe and its many layers to you.
Oh yeah. And it's so bad. Eventually he like reaches under the table and like touches her leg, is like bouncing up and down. She has much nervous energy, and he like puts his hand like around her to stop it, and that's kind of like snaps her out of it, and she's like, and that's all I have to say on that. And then finally, like everyone else gets to get a word in, and again, it's a very, very like humorous, like funny moment. I thought it was great.
Oh yeah, it's a great little, and it was good because like it could have gone a different way. Like in a lot of other shows, she'd be doing that speech, and then she'd be like, don't you guys get it? The scientists are killing themselves, and like the world is falling apart, and would have descended. But she, in that moment, and that's a good thing. Like I'm curious to see if that becomes a thing later. Just him touching her leg is a calming influence, and it brings her back to that moment of reality, almost like it almost wakes her up a little bit. And she realizes, oh, okay, I have gone on too long. And so she makes a joke to sort of get out of it. And
but she like eats part of the roll, and she's like, I just ate a universe.
Yeah. And and she does that on purpose. She makes a joke. Everybody laughs. It breaks the tension. But I like how instrumental Raj was in that moment, where he sort of calms her down, brings her back down to earth for a hot second, and she recognizes it and is able to like come out of it. You know what I mean? At least she still can now. Who knows what she'll be like a few episodes from now.
Overall.
So yeah, overalls. Don't tell me anything. So we get that great scene with Jin and Raj, but we also get this great scene with Augie too. And, she said way at the beginning of the episode, the whole thing where she's like, yes, the countdown stopped, but so did my career. And it's all dramatic and whatever. But we get this great scene. It's a two-parter in the scene where she gets this moment with I would assume it seems like he's her boss. Like maybe he funds the research, or he's the head scientist or something like that, or the head
I think she's the head scientist, but yeah, he's clearly like the chairman of the board, or someone that
something like
has
that,
like authority over her. But like all of the sciencey stuff, she's the top person
for sure. And so he's trying to talk her through the stoppage of the work. Why would you stop? And he's being very friendly at first. You're so talented, and this work is so important, and the things that we're doing, and the da 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 da, and it's going. It seems like, not that he's making progress so much, but she already knows all of those things. She feels all of those things.
Oh yeah.
She just can't, because she can't have the countdown again, but she can't tell him that. So, because she'll look crazy. So unfortunately, it ends kind of badly, because in two ways. First of all, as he's leaving, he's trying really hard. He's been very reserved the whole time, and very like, come on, why are we? Because he doesn't understand. He doesn't get what she's doing. But he ends it with saying, I didn't want to go here, but I sign off on your ILR, which is her residency status, her work visa. And he's basically like, you can't have a work visa if you're not working. And then he like storms off, and it's like, oh shit, like she could be deported, kicked out of the country, because he's not wrong, So she's got all of that hanging over her head. And so she goes back to her computer. She tries for a hot second to get like her, her research and her databases running again and running numbers. And as soon as she starts doing that, the numbers appear in her vision again.
They do. 1 minute, 9 seconds.
So she does not have a lot of time left. So she makes the decision. She closes everything off immediately. And then like 2 seconds later, the countdown stops again.
Yeah.
So what's great about that scene is that it gives us a visual representation of, it will always be a part of her existence. Like, she can't just like, okay, I stopped my research, but are you watching? Okay, I'm going to turn it back on again, or whatever.
Yeah.
There was nobody in the lab. There was nobody with her, nobody spying on her. She was by herself. She turned it on. And as soon as she turned it on, it started again.
And it was back again. Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
God. And it's terrible, because it's like these experiments and this work that she's dedicated herself to has become her life. So now it's like, what's your life's purpose when you can't work on that project anymore?
That thing that clearly she probably spent like the last 5-7 years working on night and day. And and this like, as soon as like she shuts it down and it goes away, she calls Saul. And again, we kind of get a little bit of the relationship between all of these young scientist people. And Augie and Saul clearly had something at some point.
Yeah, that's clear. Yeah.
And she, she calls and wakes him up, and, she's freaking out and everything. And he's, like, out of a cold sleep. He's like, okay, calm down. He's like, and, I understand. And, the countdown's not, it's totally real, because we all saw the stars blink. I believe, you're not crazy, all that stuff. And she's like, can you come over? I want to talk to you. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And then like the woman that he was in bed with, in the background goes like, where are you going? And then Augie's like, she stops dead cold, and she goes, is somebody there with you? And she said it just like that. There's this like jealous, like, oh my freaking God tone in her voice. And he's like, what? No, I'm coming to you right now. And she's like, someone's there with you, isn't it? And she's like, no. And then she just hangs up on him. It's like basically telling him to go F himself. Relationships are so great.
Are they though?
Are they? Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I thought that was fun. And I think then the next scene that they get is Will like had like a surgery done where they like removed a bunch of his tumors from his pancreas and other spots where they could, and he's like in recovery. And so Jack and Saul come to visit him. So Saul has been led on and knows what's going on with Will.
Right.
And they kind of chastise Will that he didn't tell Jin when he had a chance. And what does he say? Like, oh, she knows. On some level, she knows. And I was like, really? And I think that's the drugs talking. But and then it was, what I thought was really interesting was that Will basically says that while he was under, he and his cancer had a nice little chat, as he says it. And Jack and Saul kind of look at each other like, what? And basically Will says, cancer is, cancer's not a bad guy. Cancer just wants some place to live, and basically has decided it's going to be my body. And he's like, of course I'm not happy about that because I need my body. And what did he say? That ultimately they came to an agreement that cancer can live on a little bit of his pancreas and he gets all the rest. And again, they're looking at him like, wow, what kind of drugs did they give you? Right. And then he points out like, Jack, I like your hat. And of course, Jack is not wearing a hat at all. And, and he's just like, what, and stuff. But what I really thought was interesting was at the dinner scene with Raj's family, Raj's dad tells this war story. And it's a story where his unit, it's a war between India and Pakistan that happened in like either the late 40s or the early 50s. Mm-hmm. And his unit was in the Himalayas, and he was the commanding officer. And they were up so high that unless you have oxygen in tanks, you could suffer from hypoxia because there's not enough oxygen in the atmosphere. Yeah. And all of his men were dying, and it's his words. And then he had to go over to the enemy, the Pakistanis. They had a camp like 100 meters away, and he climbed up there and he pretended to be dead until all the Pakistani soldiers came out to look at him and said, that's when I threw my grenade and I killed them all. And I took all of their supplies and oxygen and I took it back to my men, and we all survived. So he tells that story, and then Will tells the story of, cancer's not a bad guy. He's just looking for some place to live, and he's picked my body, right? And, that's unfortunate for me because I'm already here, but, he's just going to do what he's going to do. And when you take those two stories and put them in context with what else we learn about this episode, right? It's kind of like, hey, you know what? I think they're trying to tell us something.
I can't quite figure out what the message is here, but
yeah,
it's possible they're just looking for some place to live.
And they've picked us, and you know what? If they have to kill all of us to survive, well, that's what they're going to do. Right. And it's just interesting because one story is deadly serious and matter of fact, and it's not like a kind of a, hey, I'm like having a weird trip, man, I'm just going to tell you what I'm dreaming. You know what I mean? It's much more, no, this happened and I had to do what I had to do. And then you get kind of the funny story from Will, and yet it's the same story basically. And I thought that was a really nice bit of the writing to kind of help us along with, oh, right. Now I know what the aliens are going to do.
Right. It's clear. It's pretty clear.
Yes.
We get a great scene of Jack and Jin back in the game again. Because now
are we in Lost?
No. This is Jin, the scientist.
Oh, right. Sorry.
The scientist / crisps maker. And so I'm sorry, and drummer. I forgot the most important part. He's definitely an accomplished drummer. He definitely hasn't just played that drum set one time.
What? No.
No. Anyway, so they return into the game. They're now on level 3, and because they've leveled up, and it's this great scene that's in. I I'm gonna say we're not in Mongolia anymore, are we?
No, I think we're actually on the alien planet now, because he just says it's like a wasteland. They're looking around and there's nothing, and then and then there's the Khan's castle, whatever you want to call it, and the army is all there and so on, including the annoying little girl. And yeah, but I got the sense that they kind of stripped away the skin of something familiar to the people playing. So with Jin, it was an Asian thing, because she's obviously she's Asian, and then for Jack, he's a dumb Brit, so we're gonna set it in Tudor England, that kind of thing.
Right,
I think at this point it's like, nope, we're just on the actual alien world. Here we go.
Right. Yeah, and without anything familiar around you, how would you react? So,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they're in this wasteland, but as they're approaching. Because each of these things has been, you show up and you're on a road and you approach the leader's, domicile of some kind.
Right.
It's either this, that there was that Asian like temple, and then it's like the church in England for where the Pope was, etc.
Right.
So in this case, it's this sprawling, type of it. I mean, it looks like a castle of some kind. And as they're on their way there, they're going past all of these soldiers. And eventually, of course, they come upon one that's very young, and you're like, oh, look, it's the little girl. It was there again.
Little girl.
And at this point, now Jin is starting to ignore her a little. And she's like, oh, Jin, like, it's getting close. Like, you've got.
Hello, Copernicus.
Copernicus, can you've really got to save me this time.
We got our fingers crossed.
So they make it up to the castle, we'll call it. And again, there is a person in charge. It's Kubla Khan, isn't it?
Yep,
it's what they said.
Khan. Yep.
And then it's also another two gamers are in there, trying to give their ideas as well. The aforementioned, what you call it, was Turing and
Professor Turing and Galileo.
Right.
I think it was Galileo. Yeah. And they're again they're like typical whiny gamers, right? Like, hey, you were gonna do our idea, Khan.
Right.
Come on,
Just like they were in the other.
And then the thing with the Pope, they're both they're all and a couple of them have like glasses on, right? Like clearly modern eyeglasses, and you know what I mean. So it's very obvious that those are like human players; those are not NPCs.
Right.
So it's great.
Yeah. So they get there and they aren't allowed to give their idea first. These guys go first. And they're like, we have a solution. And they're like, you don't really. And they're like, no, we do. And so they set up this, and you put it in your notes as well. But I mean, it's one of the set pieces of probably the whole episode.
Uh-huh.
All of those soldiers, they pick up
13 million of them.
Yeah, they pick up they have like a sign on a stick, almost like you would at like a protest, like a large sign on the end of a stick. But instead of words or whatever, one side is white and one side is black. And
ones
then
and zeros.
Right. And so then they go through a complicated dance of flipping it forward or backward based on, a whole structure put together by this guy. And they are essentially a human computer.
Yes.
And they're, like you said, they're running the X's and the O's in different sequence. And it's, at first, it works. They have this human computer, which sort of, I'm going to use air quotes, speaks, I guess, to the sun to try and, because the whole point is to predict the sun, predict the chaotic era that's going to come in, whatever. And at first it feels like it's working. And what's hilarious is while they're like, okay, these two, they don't burn them, but they boil them.
They
throw them
in oil.
Boiling water.
Yes. Yeah.
So Jin and Jack get tossed into boiling water. So basically we're going to have Jack's soup. Hopefully he's got a packet of crisps in his pocket, so at least it'll have a little potatoey
Well,
flavor.
you know what? If it's okay with you, I'd rather have a bowl of gin stew if I could.
Oh, look at you! Oh.
Yeah, and I love too when the other two guys, they're all totally being cocky that they're right, and Galileo like walks up to the edge of they're like up on the like a balcony or something overlooking these 13 million soldiers, right? That
It's
all
got a
have
very-
these signs.
It's got a very Lord of the Rings moment when he shows all the Uruk-hai to Wormtongue.
Right.
It steps out and it's just a ridiculous sum of people, and they're up high above, and you can see the whole thing. It's very impressive.
But yeah, and so then he like yells. He's like, "Run, like 3-body problem software 1.0." and then they all start doing the flipping the signs around, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, and everything. And so that's when Jack's like, "You've built a human computer,"
Yeah.
Yeah, and they run, and then after it calculates it, and then like one of the soldiers is on a horse, and he goes galloping off to the palace, and he hands him this like scroll that has the answer, and they're like, "Okay, in 8 months and 3 days, an age of peace will begin that will last 10,000 years," and immediately Jack looks at Jin, and Jin's like, "No, no, it's wrong."
Not gonna work.
Yeah, and then so then I think too, that's when the Khan's like, yeah, boil them in oil, because they are like their computations are wrong. It's not going to work. They don't have all the data to actually compute all this, and so it's not going to be right. And the Khan's like, boil them.
Yeah, you're done. We're done with you.
Yeah.
It's great too because as it starts to fall apart. You can see like they're like, this isn't working, it's going bad. It's when the suns line up, right?
The 3 suns will line up in what's called a schism or sigim.
Yeah.
And basically now you have the 3 the pull of the 3 suns, like the gravity of 3 suns pulling on the planet. So like basically everything not attached to the ground starts floating up into the air.
Sure do.
And it's so great because the Khan is like, "You two are idiots," and as he goes flying by, he cuts both of the other guys in half.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so unexpected because you expect them to be angry, and you expect to see like the usual kinds of like they were tossed into boiling water and burn them and whatever. Those are normal things. And slicing them in half, normal. Happening while you're floating towards the sun is not an image you normally see.
Not a thing that happens every day. Yeah.
No. Yeah. It's definitely it's outside the realm of what we're used to seeing in your typical. I mean, this is sci-fi, so really, all bets are off.
Yes.
So. Yeah.
And then of course the little girl floats by, and Jin can't save her yet again.
Of course.
I kept waiting for the little girl as she floated away to go, "I'll remember this,"
I'll never forget you. Terrible person.
Copernicus. Oh God. Yeah. And so anyway, so then basically everybody floats away, and then the sword girl shows up again.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, the civilization did not survive, but then she points out, but you guys correctly realize that the goal of the game is not to save the planet, it's to save the people.
Which is interesting, right?
Yes. And then she goes, you've completed this mission and you're now ready for level 4. So again, one time they played level 3 and they passed. And so when they finish that, that's when she gets like the invitation to show up at this club like the next day at midnight. And so does Jack. They both get that. And so now they it's in the middle of London somewhere, and they show up, and there they run. It's a totally empty nightclub except for Tatiana. She's sitting there waiting for them. And as soon as I saw her, I'm like, uh-oh, this ain't good.
Yeah. And I'm like, Jin and Jack get to meet Tatiana, but you're nervous because it's like, okay, we don't know what she is yet. Is she human and she's got some kind of magical powers, or, because we know she was scrubbed from that footage with Augie, but we don't know why. Did someone do that? Did it happen?
Does she have the ability to do that herself? Yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
We don't know. We don't know.
And it's science fiction, so really anything can happen. So we don't know what to expect. They come in, they sit down, but then, Tatiana starts telling the tale, and she tells the tale of this, who her people are, where they are, that they're on their way, they're almost here, and that they've been invited to, go someplace else to do more, like to continue on with this mission. You're being selected by, you've made it so far, and did they get told like they've made it the furthest? I can't remember what the thing was.
She says that they're the first two in like the UK region to advance this far.
Yeah.
They're like, well, what's going on? And she's like, put on your headsets and all your questions will be answered. And so then they put on the headsets, and then like you said, we actually see the aliens' homeworld, and we see like they say they got the signal, and now they're on their way. They built this like 10,000 ship fleet of starships, and you see them all in orbit, and of course Jin and Jack are like, holy crap, what's going on? And then all the ships like jump to light speed or whatever, and so then they take off the helmets, and I think that's at that point that Jack's like, that's it, huh? Aliens? Really? And he's just like, it's a scam. He's like, you're just after my money. You're after a rich guy's money. And Tatiana's like, we have money. We don't need your money, And of course, Jin is like, no, I mean, Jack, think about it. Everything you said, like this tech is like 5 times, 10 times more advanced than where we are. So where did it come from? Aliens makes as much sense as anything else,
Yeah.
But Jack he's right there at customer service, asking for his money back because he's not buying it.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, screw this. And Tatiana, said, if you're free to leave if you want to. And he's like, well, thanks. And he gets up and he like I appreciated that he didn't just leave Jin there. He's like, I'm going to be across the street at the pub. When you're ready to go, come get me, Yeah. So he doesn't leave her high and dry. But Jin, much more accepting and understanding, stays. And that's when Tatiana says that there's a summit meeting or something coming up, and
right.
You're invited, and you're gonna there's gonna be like-minded people, and it's you really want to go to this. It's gonna be great. And Jin's like, yeah, sign me up. I mean, she's very much more willing to go along with it.
Yeah. She's also like we were saying, when it comes to the game, emotionally, she's far more invested than Jack is. For Jack gets a game still because he doesn't have the emotional maturity to connect with the people inside the game. He can't connect with a game where the point of the game is the people inside of it. But Jin will, because she has like that sympathetic streak in her. So
well, and emotionally, she's not 14. So yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. There was that great line at the beginning where they were like, because they were incredulous at the whole two-player game, and they were like, "Oh, well, we're all synced up and da da da. Well, are they looking at us right now? Whoever's running this?" And Jack had a crack where it was like, because Jin was like, "Yeah, they're probably able to sync, our needs and our wants, whatever. Like, they know about us. Very AI, right?" And Jack's like, "I don't like that. What if they've seen my browser history?" And she goes, Well, if we see a lady farting on a birthday cake, we'll know they have.
We'll know that they have.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Because it makes its point, and it wasn't as crude as it could have been, because there's a lot of other things that she could have said.
Yeah. You get the feeling that the girl farting on the cake, not the craziest, sickest thing Jack's probably Googled, you know?
Yeah. Oh, my God. So is it from there we pivot to the scene with Mike Evans?
Yes.
There?
We finally see who is the mysterious guy is that's watching them play.
Yeah.
And we don't know who he is. It doesn't say who it is, but we meet him, and he is watching them, and he gets up and he goes and he finds Mike Evans' office, and he knocks on the door and comes in there, and he's like, hey, we have two really promising applicants or people that could join our cause in the UK region. And Mike Evans is like, oh, cool, let's vet him. That's great. And then I think the guy points out that Jin is much more attached to the little girl than the other guy.
Yeah.
And Mike Evans is like, yeah, well, we thought that would happen with her. So again, like you said, it was kind of a targeted thing.
Yeah.
That she, whether it's a motherly thing or it's because she was abandoned or whatever. And we should point out too that when she's talking to Tatiana, Tatiana brings up you had a very similar experience to what the aliens did, where you had to leave your home when it flooded in Hubei, China. And she's like, how do you know that? And of course, Tatiana then answers her question with a question, which I freaking hate. She's like, what do you remember about that? And she, she tells her parents put her on a door in Titanic, and then the currents pulled them under and drowned them. And she's like, that's the last that I ever saw them. And so again, very sympathetic, right? Sympathetic to what the aliens are going through, because she had a very similar thing. She had to leave her home. Right. It was going to kill her. And now she moved to, I think they said she went to New Zealand, and that's where she grew up.
Yeah.
And, again, so very trying to set up the, hey, we're not that much different than you. And I think at some point, one of them asked her, is that what the aliens look like, the characters in the game? And she just kind of smiles and goes, we took a few liberties.
Yeah, I love that.
Which tells me, they could have 9 tentacles for all we know, right? So we'll have to see what they ultimately look like. But yeah, and so anyway, Mike Evans is like, cool, we'll vet these two, and that's great. And so the guy leaves, and then Mike Evans has a microphone on his desk, and he turns it on, and he is literally talking to one of the aliens, and it has the voice of the Sword Girl.
Yep.
And he's reading Hansel and Gretel to and he refers to it as my lord when he's talking to this voice, and the voice is asking questions, and they're at a point in the Hansel and Gretel story, and she's like, the voice goes, so the Hansel is afraid, and he's like, yes, at this point, yes, and she goes, but Gretel is not, and he goes, no, not right now. And then the voice is like, so is that possible? And he's like, yeah, fear is an emotion, and it's an individual thing. And the alien or the voice says, well, in our species, we all experience everything together. So if we're scared, we're all scared. If we're happy, we're all happy. And he says, yeah, humans used to be like that, but not anymore. Now when we meet someone that's extremely brave or fearless, we look at them as an inspiration to someone we want to be like. And the alien voice, then there's a pause and doesn't say anything, and he's like, my lord, are you there? And then it goes. I wrote this down. The alien goes, a lack of fear leads to extinction. If your ancestors had followed the fearless, you would not exist. And then he's like, and then the voice goes, humanity must learn to fear again. And Mike Evans is like, well, then we're gonna teach them. And I thought that was a really chilling line there, where you're like, what does that mean? So
I'm dying to find out, and I hope it's explored soon, but I'm dying to find out. So, the last we saw Mike Evans, where we met Mike Evans, he's this environmentalist in the woods in Upper Mongolia. And, Wang Ji is the one who has the conversation with, the communication with the alien life form.
Right.
And now we fast forward to this timeline, and she has nothing to do with science that we know of, on the surface at least. And he is connected up with this alien species and is communicating with them. Like it's this interesting sort of like it went from there to there kind of thing. And I'm dying to find out how we got here, how Mike Evans got there.
Exactly. Me too.
Yeah.
Overalls.
Yeah. I know, but I don't know. And it's sad. It's very sad.
And see, I know. And I know that you don't know. And you know that I know that you don't know. But what you don't know is that I know you don't know what I know.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Exactly.
So, speaking of sadness,
is it a happy ending?
No, no, it's not. It's a sad ending. It's a surprising ending. And it's surprising in a couple of ways, which is, so obviously Tatiana said you're free to go, and oh boy, did she lie.
Well, no, he was free to leave. That was she didn't.
He just didn't know his life depended on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, she's there in his place, and he even said, I've got security systems and I've got whatever
cameras in every room, and she went,
and I love that now that we know who Tatiana is, we know she's an alien, and that there's some reason, or she is an alien, right? That's clear.
Overalls.
Yeah, she either is an alien or she speaks for them or whatever. She's connected with them.
She's clearly on Team Alien. Yeah, there's
Correct.
No doubt about
she's
that.
She's on Team Alien, whether she is one or not. But anyway, so she has an alien-like quality about her, perhaps. Is the best way to put that.
Yep.
So he's like, cameras, yada, yada. I'm like, I don't think she's going to appear on the cameras. And then, lo and behold, she do not.
Yeah, she vanishes right in the end. Yeah.
The other thing that's crazy is Jack has this house that is literally completely comprised of windows. Yep. This whole area where he's standing. And Clarence surveilling him as we speak. He had the camera out. Jack got home. He took some pictures. Jack got into that room up on the second floor. He's in the room. You can see the lights are on. And then Tatiana shows up. You cannot see her.
You can't see anything. You can't see Jack either.
So she not only has the ability to make herself not be seen, but, Clarence is out there watching, and he does not see what happens, which is Tatiana just walks right up to him and says the line of the whole episode, which is,
all you had to do is keep playing the game. And then stabby stab.
Stabbity stab. Right in the neck, too. That's bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's funny because he had the whole throat slash thing. He could taste the blood. I guarantee he tasted the blood this time too.
Yes, he did. He totally did. Yes.
Wasn't a simulation though. It was actual realness. Yeah. So it was sad in two ways, which was obviously Jack's gone, and that's quick, man.
He's gone. In his own blood. Yep.
Yeah. So he's gone really quick. So that's a sad thing because, like you were saying, he is kind of in the comic relief. And now it's going to be gone. So it's going to be a little dark from here on out, I'm thinking. But on top of it, there's a little bit more, sadness over the fact that they're able to get away with what they did to Jack, what Tatiana did to Jack, even though they're under surveillance because Clarence didn't see anything. So there's some sort of cloaking device happening there. And it's, he's none the wiser. He literally sat there while Jack was being killed and didn't know what was happening and couldn't stop it in any way.
Remember what Saul said about the lights, the stars blinking in, at the end of episode 1. He points out that none of the telescopes, none of the satellites saw it. So, but humans did. So he's like, it's clearly we were manipulated. And then he points out that the headsets, they monitor all of your vital stats that are going on, and they have an ocular sensor and all that stuff. And Saul says something that controls everything that's going into your brain and everything that's going out of your brain. That's like high level tech. Mm-hmm. So clearly, Mike Evans and the aliens have built something that can affect what we consider to be reality.
Right.
And then, like you said, Jack comes home and he goes in, and the first thing is that he has no internet and he has no phone signal.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's like, what the? And so then he goes upstairs and he's got his phone out and he's like holding his phone up to see if he can get just a regular, a regular cell signal. And he turns the light on, and Clarence sees the light go on for the room. And like you said, it's all glass windows, right?
Right.
And so he's like, okay, that light's on, but we never see Jack from Clarence's point of view. We never see Jack on that floor at all. It's just the lights on. And in that room is Tatiana, and Tatiana's like, who are you trying to call? And he's just like, what are you doing? And he threatens her, and he's like, get out of here. I've got, security. And she's like, uh-huh. And then she like pushes him into the window, and she smashes him so hard the window cracks behind him.
And you don't see any of it.
And from from Clarence's point of view, no crack in the window and no sign of either of them. And and that's when she drops that bomb of like, all you had to do is keep playing the game. That was it. And I have to say, probably back at when he first put the headset on and there was like the terms and agreement conditions that you have to agree to, he just scrolled all the way to the bottom and hit I accept. He didn't actually read them, because probably at the very end was a line of like, if you decide to stop playing before you complete the game, we get to kill you.
Yeah.
And he agreed. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah. I mean, it's morally reprehensible what they did, but they were just going by the rules of the game, really.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, hey, he agreed, and then just from a sound guy's point of view, as when that whole scene starts, they decided to put Radiohead's Karma Police as the music in the background. Mm-hmm. And that's brilliant, because the lines of that song, and literally when she stabs him, is right at the point where the line is, this is what you get.
Oh my God, that's so well done.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Yeah.
I see. I didn't even clock that because I don't know a lot of Radiohead music, so it didn't resonate. The scene in the very beginning where it's a bunch of old college friends hanging around, and there's a moment with Jin and Will and, unrequited love and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And Mazzy Star's Fade Into You is playing in the background. That's a moment that I clocked very easily, because that song played in every dorm room where people were fooling around the entire time I was in college. So
there you go.
Yes, that moment clocked with me. The Radiohead, I don't know a lot of their music, so that didn't hit me, but I know a lot of other people did catch that. So that's pretty cool, man. Some good sound design there.
Yeah, well, just excellent choice of all of the diegetic music that you get. The Radiohead music clearly is not diegetic. I should rephrase that. That's just music, background music. But the Mazzy Star stuff and everything, that's wonderful choice. So.
Oh God.
Very cool.
That's such a great song.
And again, the episode, like you said, it's a little slow-ish in points, but I mean, what a bang to end on.
It is. It's funny because in the beginning, when we said that, it was a good episode, not our favorite, it may have sounded like, you were expecting more like sort of negatives from us. But like once you get to the end here, like that sequence for me, from the moment of Jin and Jack meeting Tatiana all the way to the end was such a great part of the episode. And it did exactly what it's supposed to do, which is I am dying to see what the next moment is.
Episode 4.
I know. Oh my God, I missed episode 4.
Yeah.
And once again, I'm going to be busy this weekend, so I have to watch it this week. I got to do it quick, and I got to watch like a couple of times so that I get it in my brain.
Gotcha.
Oh my God. Is there anything in your list or that we might have jumped over or skipped? I'm taking a look through my list here to make sure. I think I hit all my points.
The only, I just had another cool kind of like it was a great line, but it's very like ominous where when they're in the nightclub with Tatiana, Jack and Jin, and they both put the headsets on, and we see the Sword Girl, and she's explaining the whole, the aliens built the fleet and they're on their way. The Sword Girl is with the annoying little girl that in the captioning they referred to her as the follower girl. I don't know what that means, but and she's there too. And the Sword Girl says, they left, and every day they're getting closer to coming here. And the little follower girl like smiles and goes, "We can't wait to meet you."
It's such an ominous line.
It is. You're just like, oh my God, run.
It's so sweet coming from her, but you know that she means we can't wait to see what you taste like.
That's right, because we understand that girls taste the best. Jin's like,
are you salty or sweet? That's what we're betting on it.
Right, yeah, absolutely. But anyway, I thought that was a real fun, very, very ominous line. Just when she has the little smile on her face. We can't wait.
Of course she does. I'm always happy when I have a meal. Why wouldn't you smile?
That's right. It's kind of like the aliens are in the drive-thru right now.
Oh my God.
They're just pulling around. They're pulling around to the window.
They are. They're getting ready for it. I don't have anything that I missed on my list. I think I'm good to move on.
All right.
Cool. All right. So, folks, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, as usual. When we come back, we're going to talk listener feedback that we received for this episode, and we're going to talk about what's coming up on the podcast.
All right. Well, everyone, please stick around because we'll be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally going to get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the best of horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and apocalyptic entertainment. Aim for the Head, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Find us on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Hi, this is Tom Savini, and you're listening to the Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And don't forget to always aim for the head because body shots just don't work.
Hey, everybody. We are back. We're going to jump right back into our listener feedback, chat a little bit about what's coming up on the podcast, and then, thankfully, we're going to let you go. So let's jump into our feedback. Steve, why don't you go first this week?
All right. Well, sounds good to me. And our first piece of feedback comes from our old faithful, I guess we should say.
Old faithful, yes.
And that is Erica Price, who is Erica. Following along. And Erica's doing the same thing that I'm doing in that she's already watched it once before, but she's rewatching it and then sending in her comments every week. And I think that's super cool. And she sent this via the Facebook, and she goes, from last week's episode, and I think one of the things that I brought up that I was questioning is that everybody in the game that puts the helmet on that didn't get an invite gets their head cut off by the Sword Girl, right? Yep. Because we see Jack has it happen, and then Augie has it happen. Yet when Jin puts on Vera's helmet, the game just plays. And I'm like, why does it do that? That's my logic of like, well, then you're being inconsistent and the logic doesn't make sense. So Erica is answering that question basically and saying, I think it's safe to assume whoever is running / monitoring the game is aware that Vera is dead. And that's how Jin was able to take over her headset. Okay. Again, maybe. I'll give you credit, Erica. That could work. I just think that there's potentially some sloppy storytelling there because, you set up how your universe runs, and then if you break that rule or one of those rules, it's going to stick out. And that's why I'm like, why does it do that? But anyway, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's what it is. She goes on to say, wow, 32 scientists dead. What a blow to start off with. I love how Jin and Jack say they'll quit the game and immediately they're on Zoom talking about how to solve it. Yep, that is correct. Not only are they immediately on it afterwards, but then Jack is like, oh my God, how many times have you played the game? And she's like, a lot. She goes on to say, how in the hell did Clarence hack into their Zoom? Well, Clarence, he's got that secret police technology.
Yeah,
so
like that Black Ops, close to it kind of thing.
Because, he was like listening in on her phone before that. And, that's a pretty hard thing to do, too. So and then she goes on to say 2-player mode. Cool. I'm assuming that Aristotle and Galileo are also real world players. Yes, I agree. I believe that is what those were other scientists from some other part of the world, probably the United States, because they kind of sounded like dumb Americans. And they had come up with their solution to that world, and whatever reason the game put Jin and Jack into the same scenario. She goes on to say, now we're getting hints about what the mysterious Mike Evans is up to. I like how we're getting more information about the point of the gameplay. And then, interesting. She goes, the song Karma Police on Clarence's car radio. How clever. See, okay, so it was diegetic because it was playing in his car. I did not. I missed that part. I thought it was just on the soundtrack. But anyway, it was a wonderful choice of music. And then she goes, R.I.P. Jack. And now we know that the Santi aren't effing around. And that is true. Jack learned the secret of what's going on. And when he decided he was going to take his toys and go home, they killed him. So there's a lesson there of, be careful when you put on strange headsets, right?
Yes.
But anyway, Erica, wonderful feedback. I love it. Some really interesting ideas, and cannot wait to see what you have to say about episode 4.
Absolutely. And who doesn't love a reliable person writing in all the time, telling you what they think of movies, TV? We love it.
I know, it's so great.
It's so great. Moving on to someone equally as great. Doesn't write in as much, but that's just because this man does not watch a lot of television. I'm just kidding. He doesn't watch Walking Dead, is what we're saying. All he does is he records pieces for people that do podcasts about Walking Dead. And that's our pal Joe Griffin we're talking about.
That's right.
Joe sent in some feedback. He did not need to be browbeat on the social media this time, so good job, Joe. Thank you.
Interestingly enough, just to interrupt before you get going, I went over to his house last week, Tuesday, to see him. We were going to work on some sound stuff that we're doing. And as I came into his apartment, he buzzed me up and I went in. I could hear playing over his speakers our podcast right in the feedback section. And I'm like, oh, very interesting.
And what did he have to say about me saying he's browbeated? Sorry.
Yeah, well, apparently, you know what? Like you said, mission accomplished, because here it is.
Hey, and here's the thing. I did not have to shame him. It was really less about browbeating. It was more shaming. And it worked. And obviously, the moral of the story is the shaming worked so well that I didn't have to do it twice, which means it really, really worked.
It really took.
Okay. So that being said, let's actually talk about his feedback.
Yes.
So Joe wrote in via the Facebook Messenger, actually, and he wrote, episode title, of course, refers to Oppenheimer's famous quote of an ancient Hindu text. I'm sure you've covered that, though.
We did. We talked about it a little bit right when we started. Yeah. It's when they tested the first atomic device in Los Alamos. He literally said, I am death, I am the destroyer of worlds, which is from an ancient Hindu text. So yeah.
Nice. He continues on and says that is a all caps ludicrous drum set. It screams bored rich guy.
Yeah, just like you said.
It sure do. It sure do. I mean, it's up. You were even saying it's up on a platform and everything. And not only does it scream bored rich guy, but I'm wondering if Joe agrees. It screams bored rich guy who has used this item once.
Maybe.
And
once.
Yeah, maybe. And then when he realized that he didn't have any musical skill, and that there's more to the drums than just going, banging on them. You have to actually have rhythm and, play actual notes. No, he wasn't interested.
See, that's weird because I thought if you get a drum set and you start to play it and you realize you have no talent, you end up becoming the drummer for Kiss. Oh, no, I didn't. I'm kidding.
That's terrible.
I'm apologizing. But, true. Anyway,
true statements. He goes on and says, this is great. I didn't think the Kubla Commodore 64 was going to work. Well done there, sir. Nice to see Mark Gatiss get cut in half. Yes. Also, again, shout out to Mark Gatiss there. Continuing on, he says, I'm guessing by the conclusions it's starting to come to that the alien voice Jonathan Pryce is reading fairy tales to is not the pacifist alien from episode 2. I'm going to say a no on that one.
Yeah.
I think that's the person that the pacifist from episode 2 warned them about.
Yeah.
That's what that felt like. Yeah. Continuing on, he says, bonus points to music supervisor. What are you guys, like sound guys or something?
Possible.
Yeah. Jin and Will's conversation at the sliding glass doors is underscored by Fade Into You by Mazzy Star.
Bing, 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 bing.
Shame you never knew. If only those two were honest with each other. Aww.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that Jin is aware that Will has a puppy dog crush on her?
I think she's aware of the crush. I don't think she is aware that he's sick, though. Isn't that what they intimated?
Yeah, no. He did. Yeah, she does not know that. But I'm just saying,
she knows he likes her.
Yeah, so she's not complete because sometimes people are just oblivious and just don't pick up on the signals, right? I mean, it happens. Not all the time, but it does happen. And I'm just wondering what your take is on it.
He literally said, "Let's go away somewhere.
Let's go watch the birds."
That's pretty clear.
Yeah. He was saying like the whole group. He said like we'll go to Patagonia and Jack will pay for it all and it'll be great. And she kind of, what does she say? Like someday is kind of her response. And I think he was gonna I think his plan was to tell her about the the kind of like death cancer thing he has going on. And when she said someday, that's when he went, okay, not the time. So, but yeah. I just wanted to get your take on that. If you think that she knows that, I know he likes me, and I think it's adorable, whatever.
No. I think she knows for sure.
Oh, okay.
Maybe she's like denying it a little bit or whatever, but you could tell the way she was reacting. It definitely felt like she knew.
Okay, cool.
Continuing on, he says, bonus points to music supervisor. Wait a minute, didn't he just say that?
He did.
Oh, he's doing it again. Under the scene where Jack is killed by Creepy Girl, Radiohead's Karma Police. This is what you get when you mess with us.
Yes, and it is literally when she goes, all you had to do was keep playing, and then like there's maybe a half-second pause, and she stabs him right in the neck with like an ice pick or a screwdriver or something. And right when she does that is when we hear the line, "This is what you get when you mess with us." I mean, again, beautifully timed out. It's really cool.
Yeah. Excellent. Joe, thank you for your feedback. We may give you some shit here, but it's only because we love.
We mock what
we
don't
mock.
Understand.
We mock, but we love. Deep down.
It's love. It's love mock.
Yeah, it's love. It's Mauve or Lock or whatever. However you want to put that together. But anyway, we hope to hear from you in episode 4, sir. Yes. I'm not socially shaming you because I think you're going to do it all on your own. I think that's what's happening here. So coming up next week, speaking of episode 4, next week is Episode 4. Title of the episode is Our Lord. So are we meeting some aliens, I wonder?
Overalls.
So title is Our Lord, which we did hear within the episode, what Mike Evans called the voice that he was talking to. So if we don't meet the aliens, it definitely has alien implications. So there's that. The synopsis that I found for the episode says, Jin seeks justice after a death rattles the group. Investigators learn of an extremist group devoted to an otherworldly entity ahead of a major summit. Holy shit, I didn't learn anything there.
Well, I think that like, first sentence, you can kind of go, Jin wants to kind of even the score after Jack gets bumped off. Yeah. But maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. But it seems like that's clear. The investigators learn of an extremist group devoted to an otherworldly entity ahead of a major summit. So obviously this is, an extremist group that's devoted to probably the aliens in some way, or something that is alien adjacent, I would say, since that's a big part of this. So that's next week. I can't wait to watch this episode and find out what's happening, because that's what happens when you kill people within an episode. Walking Dead people, if you just kill a character, people would show up in the next one and watch it to see who died, or to see what happens because someone died,
or to see if they were standing on a dumpster,
right, or underneath a dumpster, or in the dumpster.
Yes.
I don't know. Something to do with a dumpster. That's all I got. That's all I know about it. Or I mean, sometimes you get stabbed in the femoral artery, and sometimes someone shows up in the woods and they just sprinkle fairy dust on you, and you're fine. You're fine.
Sure. I look, if it happened on the show, it's medical fact. Okay.
Absolutely. Right? I mean, and not long after that, he was able to, go into like full battle. I mean,
absolutely. Right.
These are the mysteries of the human body, are things that Walking Dead taught us.
Think how much Walking Dead taught us about, how radiation works. I mean, oh my God, was I under the wrong idea of how that stuff operates?
The gift of how non-lethal radiation is, it was really eye-opening.
It really is.
Yeah. And by eye-opening, it means our face is falling off and our eyes are falling out of our face. Because that's what Chernobyl taught us, damn it.
Oh, damn it.
Oh, my God. Anyway, on that note, speaking of Chernobyl, folks, if there's a did I talk about this last week, that there's some HBO stuff that's showing up on Netflix?
Yeah, I think you did.
I don't know that I saw Chernobyl, but I did see a couple of others. So just keep your eyes open if there's a series like Chernobyl that you hadn't gotten to because you didn't have a subscription to Max. And I've also heard about some other series showing up on Prime too that were previously associated with, like whether it's a Max or a Showtime or something like that. So just, keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah.
I didn't even mean to make that joke.
Wow. And you had mentioned this a couple weeks ago too, when you had said that like season 1 of Yellow Jackets was now on Netflix, and this is now a thing in the industry where they will kind of different channels or companies will give out their shows to other streaming services, but not like all of them, maybe just like one season. It's and like the idea
too,
exactly. So you like, hey, you watch season 1 of Yellow Jackets and you're like, oh my God, this show is great. Where's the rest of it? Oh, now I got to go buy that channel, and they're getting people to do it. So it's
timing. But it's timing too, because season 3 of Yellow Jackets comes out not this coming weekend, but the weekend after. So
okay.
If you get sucked into it and you're interested, then there's brand new episodes happening very, very soon. So you time it right, as a larger entity, like say Showtime, who's the one that produced Yellow Jackets. If you time that appropriately, you may snag some subscribers you wouldn't have otherwise had because you gave them a little taste of something. I mean, the first season's been out for like 2 to 3 years now.
Oh, right.
So
yeah.
Anything that could or would have been spoiled by it, it's too late now. So it's like you put it out there. They're still getting some kind of money for having it out there. And then the amount of, memberships that they might gain from it, it's all positives for them. And it's great for you because so many people have either Netflix or Prime, like just as like their basic thing they keep.
Yep.
And then sort of add on things as they go. I mean, I have a hard time dropping Netflix, even though they keep raising the price.
They keep raising the price. I know. But, where else are you going to get your Squid Game fix? I mean, come on.
I know. Have you watched Squid Game?
I've not started season 2 yet, but I've watched season 1. So
I have not either. I would like to eventually. I only have room in my brain for the one show right now. It's hard enough that I'm going to have to concentrate on football again. So there's that. But yeah, great stuff on Netflix right now. Look for season 1s of things that you've been looking to binge lately. Yeah. All right. So that's going to do it for us this week, folks. We look forward to chatting with you next week. Episode 4 of Three Body Problem. Title of the episode, Our Lord. We're very excited to chat about our Lord and Savior. It's no longer Tom Brady. It's somebody else.
And just think, we are now at next week. We will be at the halfway point.
Wow. That's great, though, because it feels like there's still so much more to go.
Much more to go.
I know we were talking about this last week with all the shows we've been watching lately that are only 6. It feels almost like luxurious to have one that's 8. It's pretty cool.
Get those 2 extras. Yeah. The 6 episode seasons. It's like you just like by the time you get to episode 6, you're like just into it and you're ready for it to get going, and then it's over. You're like,
Yeah, so. That was the only disappointing part about Dune Prophecy was I really wish it had been like 1 to 2 episodes longer. So maybe season 2 will be longer. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. All right. Well, we look forward to chatting with you folks next week. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
Don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because the body shots, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTHpodcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
So yeah, making it to February is definitely a positive thing.
That's right, because hey, like I said, 35 months to go. So